I'm sure you're familiar with this feeling of trying to do something, but you ended up not doing it. You just sit down, procrastinate, and do something that's not related to what you're supposed to do. Then because this happens so much, we think that we need to feel inspired to take action. But actually, we need to take action to feel inspired and get motivated to do the things that we wanted to do. Psychologists call this short-term mood repair. In his book, Solving the Procrastination Puzzle, procrastination expert Dr. Tim Mitchell wrote that we're running away from the task because we feel that doing the task will be very unpleasant or even painful. The boredom, the anxiety, the fear of messing up the task stops us from actually doing it. We want to feel better right now because the forecasted pain of doing the task is much higher than actually doing it. It is so much easier to not do it and to do something that's immediately rewarding, whatever it might be. The biological reason why this happens to us is called the amygdala hijack. So the amygdala is the part of the brain that handles fear. So when we look at our long to-do list that we want to do, our brain processes that literally as a threat. So how do we fix this? How do we bypass this fear response? Well, first we need to know what happens. We usually say that we want to do something tomorrow, or that the future version of us will have more energy or more motivation to do the things that we want to do. But we know this is not true, because one way of looking at this is that there is no such thing as future. There's no such thing as the future version of you. It's always you. There's no future because it's only a plan. It's only in your imagination. And the past is only in the memory. We're always in the now, in the present. So thinking that you will be much better off an hour or a day from now, and that you have the motivation to do the things that you want to do, that's a fundamental misconception, because it will be you who's doing it, not some future version of you. And so thinking that just 24 hours from now, there's going to be a version of you that wants to do the task, it's not true. And you have 24 hours less to do the work because you procrastinated. I found that there's this story that I read from the philosopher Jean-Paul Sartre in his book, Existentialism is a Humanism, which is actually a lecture that he did in Paris in 1946. He was one of the leading philosophers of a school of thought called existentialism. And he told a story that during the war in France, in World War II, there's a young man who asked him advice about whether he should help his countrymen by going to Spain and then going to Britain to join the resistance movement. But in doing so, he would leave his mother, who's sick, at home, and she's going to be alone. And then he asked for Sartre, what's the best thing to do? And I really like how he answered the young man's question. Pick whatever you want, because some people will always criticize your opinion or your choice, regardless of what you pick. We are condemned to be free, as he would say it. The reason why we are condemned to be free is because you get to choose. And not choosing is still a decision. And so the young man ended up choosing not to join the resistance movement and to stay at home with his mother so that she's not lonely. But he could never know what would actually happen. Maybe if he joined the resistance, he would feel much better by his choice, or have some outcome that he could not have foreseen. And that's the same thing with what we do with our tasks. Because you know that you have the choice to not do anything. For example, you have a homework that you have to finish, and the deadline is 3 days from now. And you know that every second that you spend not doing the task is, reducing the time that you have to available to finish the task. That, the anxiety that you have when you think about that task. But at the same time, the choice is yours. You could technically just not do it, and then an hour before the deadline, you use ChatGPT or try to finish it in just an hour. And you could even not do the task. But there's always consequences, right? Maybe you get a bad grade, or if it's really important, you might not end up graduating. But it's up to you. I would say the freedom and the agency that you have on doing everything in your life. I'm not talking about just like productivity or tasks, but something as simple as taking a shower, brushing your teeth. You could just decide not to do anything, which is still a choice, obviously. You can just decide to, binge a Netflix series or play video games all day. And that's fine, because you choose that. But there's always consequences. And I feel like it's the same thing with one of the way of thinking so that you can stop procrastinating is just to understand that if it's really important, and the consequences are great, meaning that either the deadlines are imposed to you because, you're a student and you have to finish that, or you want to lose weight, or you want to learn a new programming language, let's say. And the consequences is that if you are not doing that, if you don't achieve such achievements, is that you won't be able to get the life that you want. Then you very much are in a position of someone who's aware that that's going to happen. So long as you know what the consequences are, I think that it's not really procrastinating, it's just that you're accepting the life that you want. And so I would say, paradoxically, that's a better way to solve this problem, is to understand that you get to choose whether you want to do the task or not. Because it's always you in the present who's doing it. So we can't wait for motivation. We can't trust our future selves. So what do? You lower the bar. You lower it so much that it's impossible to fail. So instead of, writing the essay, just open the document and write one word, right? Instead of starting to exercise, you just do one push-up, which costs like 5 seconds. And that actually helps you become more motivated. Because you know that out of all the things that you could do today, out of all the things that you can do in the present right now, because you get to choose what you want to do with your life, knowing fully the consequences of your actions, you chose to actually do the things that would get you closer to your goal. Even if it's just 0.0001% of the way there, it's much better than zero because most people don't even start. And then you realize that once you actually start working, you exercise frequently 3 or 4 times a week. Each session is like 60 to 90 minutes long at the gym. Or you read a book because you want to be smarter and you read like 20 pages a day. You realize that it's just doing that over and over again is what makes you smarter or healthier. There is no moment where people are clapping for you. Wow, you look so great. Or you're so smart. That will never happen. It might happen a couple of times, but clearly it doesn't happen very often. And even if it does happen, it's like 5 to 10 years in the future. And then you realize that everyone who you admire, who succeed, are only there because they know that the work itself is the reward. They realize that real progress is not like a movie montage that you saw, on a movie where the main character goes through this extraordinary process of transformation, which lasted like 5 minutes. But for you, it's like 5 years. You realize that it's just ordinary Tuesday. You wake up, brush your teeth, eat breakfast, drink coffee, and then you sit down and you work for like 4 hours a day, non-stop for years. And you realize that the people who succeed are those who are doing the work solely because of the work itself. No matter whether it's boring, or it's hard, or it's raining. And they don't care about motivation because they know that once they start, it gets easier, right? It gets much easier, and that's where the motivation coming from. Knowing that they get closer and they make progress to their goal. And so I think that if there's one thing that you pick from this video, is that you should probably just pick one thing that you've been avoiding and give it 2 minutes or 30 seconds. Set a timer, seriously, for 30 seconds and just do it. Because you're never going to do it anyway, right? And you might as well start now. Because even if you think that you have this capability of, I can work for hours, okay? But you will always start from 1 second, right? When you start writing the essay or you start going to the gym, like there's always that one movement that you do, one decision that you have to take. And so you might as well do it now. But you start very, very small, like 2 minutes or 30 seconds, or just one push-up, literally. Because after a couple of days doing that, you will definitely do more than one push-ups or one word that is written on your essay. And then the momentum starts there. And then you do your best to maintain that momentum. And then one day you succeed and you have achieved more than 90% of people because they didn't even start.